We talk about how you first met each other and how your relationship has evolved over the years.
True. I think the first time I actually met you was to appear before you at one time or another when you were a judge in the Common Pleas Court. In that capacity, obviously, we didn't get to know one another at all, except in a very brief passing. I'm not even sure I remember what case it was. It may have been David Warner's tax case. We really got to know one another, though, at the Board of Elections. And probably got closer having spent an incredible amount of time fighting with one another.
So do you feel as if you are in the position that you have to defend Hillary Clinton when people criticize her for being untrustworthy, for lying, and the complaints that people have for Donald Trump is what you just earlier mentioned. Do you feel like as party chair you are ever put in the position of you have to defend whatever the other side doesn't like about your candidate?
Very often the answer is yes. I hear people criticize Hillary because of the mistake that she's made and acknowledged about using a personal email server and taking the official records of the State Department in that form. And yeah, you have to defend it. You have to acknowledge, as she has, that that was a mistake and try and move the discussion to a woman who has a history of having performed for the American public at a very, very high level, going back to when she was a young lawyer and doing some of the work that she did in the American South and with children and the great things that she's done in that era, and then the incredible work that she has done both as a United States Senator, as First Lady, and as Secretary of State. And I think there's a great deal of things that we can talk about very proudly in that regard. But with some people, it always comes back to having to answer to why is she so secretive? Why did she have that server there? And we have to stand up and speak on her behalf. Yeah.
The question was, do we feel like we have to defend? The answer is not always for me. I'm not a spokesman for the Trump campaign. They haven't asked me to do that. I represent the brand. He happens to be the national spokesman for the brand right now. But we've got candidates up and down the ballot that we care about. We're having this conversation 72 hours after this tape was released on Donald Trump. I've been asked by multiple media outlets. I've not once defended him. I'm not going to defend him. Don't ever intend to. He apologized. We're going to get past it. Again, he attacked my guy a little bit. I feel like I should get to do the same here. But look, Hillary Clinton's got a long litany of. Right. Yeah, absolutely. But look. So it's easy for me to do what our candidate ought to be doing. That is pivot and talk about the inside nature of the Clinton operation. This is the classic insider in an environment that's calling for change. Our candidate's offering something totally different. And again, in their mind, that's not a positive thing. In ours, it is. He's certainly unconventional, but he's different than what's there. They've had a chance to fix things in Washington. It hasn't worked. America still thinks it's broken there. So I don't feel the need to defend everything that one person says in our party. But generally speaking, I'm convinced that this is the far better option for America. We've got candidates up and down the ballot, locally and everywhere else, that if I was defending every word that every candidate said on our side, that's probably all I would be doing. But the answer to the question directly is I don't feel like I have to defend everything, but I am on the team, and I remain on the team, and I'm going to be a Trump supporter through Election Day for sure.
So do you guys have any Election Day rituals? And if not, what's your Election Day going to look like?
I have some Election Day rituals. I've never told anybody. I will typically find a church somewhere. I just do. And not really about my candidate, just about it's a grueling process. And so I will typically go somewhere. My church is out in Finneytown, not there. But if I'm in Finneytown, I'll go in and light a candle. That's something that Greek Orthodox Christians do. They'll just go into the church and light a candle. So I've done that. But that's just something I've never told anybody, but my wife knows it. But I'll typically just go somewhere for 10 minutes and take some quiet time, sometimes downtown at St. Xavier Church. But I'm not even Catholic. You are. But anyway, that's a ritual for me for sure. And then Chip Gerhardt and I, the other board member, we got several polling locations that we'll go to. But since I've got the mic, it used to be a long-standing tradition to go and give one of our great volunteers, Kay Simon. It was a tradition to go give her a kiss on Election Day at the polling location in Hyde Park Square at the fire station. And Kay worked that polling location for 50 years. And it was sort of standard Republican procedure to go see Kay. It was give her a kiss on Election Day, and everybody thought it brought you luck because back then Republicans won everything. So the kissing Kay was a requirement. Kay unfortunately passed several years ago, and I think our luck might have passed with her in Hamilton County. But anyway, that was a ritual for a long time. But that's
my biggest ritual on Election Day is it's my job, and it has been since I've been on the Board of Elections. I have to go to Buskins before the polls open and bring several dozen donuts to the Board of Elections so that they're there by 6:30 in the morning. And I start my day at the board. And now it's more fun than it used to be because of this new system that we have, and we can see live on a screen every polling place in the county and see whether or not its equipment is up and operating. And it's a fascinating piece of equipment to look at. You don't see visually the polling place, but each polling place can be called up, and it will tell you that the e-poll book is plugged in and working, the printer is working, all of everything's set up and going. And it also tells us then if there is a problem and we need to get a troubleshooter there. And it's fascinating to watch that. I typically hang out at the Board of Elections until we know that all of our polling places are open, and usually they're all open by 6:30. On occasion, something goes wrong. Someone sleeps in, somebody forgot to open the door, all of those kinds of stories. And you deal with that. And that's why we've got extras at the Board of Elections on Election Day. That's why we've got, 150 extras out in the field now, troubleshooters that we can send to a polling place to try and make sure things are working properly. And then, like Alex, I'll spend most of the rest of Election Day visiting polling places and being available to go to polling places where there may be trouble. And usually there are a few of those during the day. And most frequently, it's not trouble with how the election is working internally, but it's complications outside of polling places where folks getting into arguments with one another, not wanting to listen to the rules about having to be outside the flags and all of those kinds of things. And there have been occasions when we've both ended up having to deal with problems at the same polling place.
So I've heard both of you talk about how even though you're on opposite party lines, opposite ideology, you kind of have a unique understanding of what the other is going through in an election cycle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've covered it some today, for sure. But I think the thing that I know that we that I know that he goes through, and I think he knows that I go through, is just trying to keep your own coalition together. You know, I've watched Tim be criticized by other Democrats, and he's probably seen me be criticized by other Republicans. So I have that understanding of what it means to say to your own coalition, I'm out here fighting the good fight on issues we agree on, right? I mean, I think he would say that, not issues that he and I agree on, but issues I agree on in my own coalition, my own party. You know, I feel like I'm a warrior for the cause, using strategy and the tactics that work for us. But getting criticized within my own party is something that I know he endures. That I think I understand. So I think, does that answer it? Yeah.
Same answer. Both of us get pushed by various elements in our party, and that's the most difficult to deal with when you have the internal party strife going on. The good thing typically in presidential elections is that especially the general presidential elections tend to bring all of the elements together. And certainly it has done it for us, for the Democrats, in this cycle where, for example, John Cranley and Chris Seelbach are both strong supporters of Hillary Clinton. It's one of the things that they've managed to agree on, and they agree on very strongly this cycle. It's been interesting, fascinating, and somewhat hopeful for our side to watch the difficulties that the Republicans are having in this cycle with some of their folks not wanting to support their candidate. Now, I will tell you, we've had a little bit of that on our side as well, with a former congressman writing a letter to the editor supporting Trump, and God love him, Dusty Rhodes, who's always been a different Democrat, acting as if he is a supporter of Donald Trump. I don't know who he's going to vote for, but he clearly does not like Hillary Clinton. So we deal with those kinds of things. I think for us, it's a much smaller problem in this cycle than it has been for you.
Okay, so make one prediction for Election Day. One, it can be anyone you want, just one prediction.
We're about to elect the first woman president of the United States, and she will carry Hamilton County.
Senator Rob Portman will be safely reelected in a critical swing state for the second straight time with a named opponent, and he'll be in the national conversation in 8 years after Donald Trump is elected.
I think that wraps it up. Okay.